Disney and the Sega Mega Drive, a match made in heaven. Or was it? There were 22 Disney games released for the system over 6 years or so, and many of them are excellent. But are all of them worth playing? And do the ones that were once good still hold up today? Let's find out. This is The Good, the Bad and the Retro. I'm Mr. O, and this is Disney Sega Mega Drive Games Ranked. Okay, before we start, a few ground rules. First, I'm using the S to F ranking system that all the cool internet people these days seem to be using. I'm including all games either based on Disney IP, featuring Disney characters, made by Disney themselves, or based on IP owned wholly or in part by Disney or their subsidiaries at the time of release. I'm also tackling the games in approximate release order, although for some of them I'm not sure of the exact date, so I apologise in advance for that if I get any wrong. Right, we have a lot of games to get through, so let's crack on. Kicking off our list is Sega's brilliant 1990 release Castle of Illusion. When I got my Mega Drive for Christmas in 1991, I got 4 games with it, and this was one of them. So being completely objective here without nostalgia taking over is going to be nigh on impossible. However, I don't think many would argue when I say this game is excellent, with colourful, authentic Disney visuals, a catchy soundtrack, varied levels, and tough but fair difficulty. In fact, the only issue really is Mickey does feel a tiny bit sluggish to control, but aside from that, this was a great early system release for Sega, and I'm going to give it an A. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's Dick Tracy doing here? Well, the film was actually made by Disney, under their Touchstone Pictures subsidiary, so it counts. Playing like a run and gun, well, more a walk and gun, this arcade-style shooter sets itself apart by allowing you to shoot into the background with a Tommy gun. The game plays well, if a bit on the slow side, and it successfully manages to capture the spirit of the film quite well. It's decent, but nothing special, so it gets a B. Hot on the heels of Castle of Illusion's success comes another Mickey Mouse platformer based on the film Fantasia. However, this game was not only outsourced to Infogrames, but was also crippled by an incredibly tight development window. And wow, is this game terrible. Fantasia is notorious for being a bit of a stinker, but you can't possibly comprehend how bad this game plays until you play it yourself. You're probably watching this footage here and thinking, oh, it doesn't look that bad. But honestly, Mickey feels so heavy and sluggish to control, and that, combined with the inconsistent platforming, just makes you want to turn it off after a few minutes. This is definitely an F. After the disaster that was Fantasia, Sega decided to make this next Disney game themselves, and that turned out to be a wise choice, as Quackshot is an excellent game. Following Donald Duck as he does his best Indiana Jones impression, it's time for a globe-hopping, backtracking adventure with interesting levels, great graphics, catchy tunes, and excellent gameplay. Another one I highly recommend, and I'm giving it an A. Confession time! I had never played this game until recording footage for this video, and yes, I get that a 40-plus-year-old man is probably not the intended target audience for such things, but I'm going to criticise it anyway. Ariel, the Little Mermaid, note the Ariel there as this is not based directly on the film, seems to me to be a game that would have been alright if it had not played like garbage. Ariel, or King Triton if you wish, just feels stiff and unresponsive to control, and attacking anything is a chore, and oh my god, look at all that mess! I'm afraid it's a D from me. This game I had never played before is based on a cartoon I have never seen before, and oh god, all these crabs! I spent a lot of time just trying to work out what you're supposed to be doing. There's a lot to be said for actually owning a manual when it comes to old games. Hang on, is that Baloo? I couldn't get very far in this, and well, it is better than Ariel, the Little Mermaid, but that is not a particularly high bar to clear. I'm also giving it a D, but it would be a D+. Right, so here's the rankings so far. Bit of a mixed bag, so let's see what's next. Oh, thank God we're back to Mickey and Donald. Now, I talked about this in my first video, where I praised pretty much all aspects from the graphics, the control, and the sound, to the varied level design. Rounding everything off with the ability to play as Mickey or Donald, along with a brilliant co-op multiplayer mode, this is easily one of the best games on the system, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. A definite S. Sunsoft actually made 2 games based on Beauty and the Beast in tandem. Belle's Quest, which was supposed to appeal to young girls, and Roar of the Beast, which was supposed to appeal to young, beasts? Now, despite being 2 standalone games, I'm actually just going to talk about them together, as they share many common elements, namely, they're both crap. Graphically, both games are pretty good, nailing the look of the film quite nicely. However, beyond that, it all begins to fall off the castle roof. Belle's Quest is a rather simplistic adventure game that took about 30 seconds to bore me to tears, where the main objective seems to be just avoiding talking to Gaston. Roar of the Beast is a bit more of a traditional platforming affair, but even so I only managed maybe 40 seconds before getting bored. Sunsoft, you can do better. It's a D for both. Oh, I'm sure it's extremely hysterical. Hang on, why have I never heard of this game before? Oh, it was only released in the US, and as you can no doubt tell from my voice, I wasn't released in the US. A fairly average platformer that does nothing really to stand out, full of fiddly platforming and an extending arm mechanic that reminds me of Bionic Commando. The difference being that Bionic Commando is actually good. Sorry Goofy, but I'm not laughing. D. There's not really much I can say about this that has not already been said. Anyone who is even remotely familiar with this system knows that this game is excellent. With a faithful aesthetic, varied and interesting levels, satisfying gameplay and an instantly recognisable soundtrack, if you own this system, you need to at least play this game. It's an A for Aladdin. I remember playing this for the first time, finishing what I assumed was the first area, and much to my surprise, the credits rolled. The very first time I played this game, ever, and it only took me about 45 minutes to beat it. Wow. Imagine spending £40 on this back in the day, only to beat it before your mum had finished cooking the roast dinner. Now, to be fair, it is aimed at kids and you can change the difficulty of the puzzles to make it a bit more challenging, but the fact that there's only a handful of not very difficult puzzles on offer means in terms of value for money, it needs to do better. Thank God for emulation these days, eh? I'm giving it a C. Oh look, it's Baloo again. Thankfully, the Jungle Book is far superior to Tailspin, with great graphics and animation, decent gameplay and serviceable music. A decent game that, while certainly doing the license justice, doesn't quite do enough to stand out on a system utterly rammed with quality platformers. It's a B for Baloo. Another game I had never heard of until I started making this video. Apparently this is also based on a cartoon, which I've never seen. This title is a collection of minigames which get progressively harder as you progress. There's not much more to it than that, to be honest, and even though it didn't impress me really, I can certainly see younger gamers finding much to enjoy here. I think I'll give it a C. Another Disney film, another platformer tie-in, and this feels very similar to the Jungle Book to play, except here the difficulty is cranked way up. You will definitely not be beating this one in 45 minutes on your first go. The animation and general presentation is excellent, with varied levels and responsive gameplay. I'm going to give this a B. It's better than the Jungle Book, but not quite as good as Aladdin. Fun fact, after this, Westwood Studios would start development on the first Command & Conquer, because there's a natural progression if ever there was one. The mouse is back. Well, I say back, he was away for what, 9 months? Regardless, this tour of Mickey Mouse's career is a charming adventure with wonderful animation, varied and interesting levels, and some great little touches that never fail to impress. Another Mickey Mouse title for the Mega Drive that is definitely worth a play. A solid A. Less than a month later we get yet another Mickey Mouse platformer. Oh, but it's okay, because we can also play as Minnie in this one. The Mega Drive version of the original Magical Quest was canned, which is a shame as I quite like it on the SNES, but I have to say that personally I don't like this one as much. It's just not very interesting, despite offering variety with its different costumes, and even though I haven't got very far in it, I don't feel like I even want to. This one's a C. Another US only release based on a dark and gritty cartoon. I must say that I do like the look of this game. The graphics and animation are excellent, but sadly the gameplay is a little bit fiddly, with confusing maze-like levels where the paths to progress are often obscured by foreground graphics. Style over substance, I think. Another C. Now this is a game that I do own, but yet for whatever reason never really played much. Well, that is, until now. The first and last Mega Drive game based on a Pixar movie, I have to say that I was quite impressed with this game. The graphics and sound are as faithful to the movie as you'd expect, and there is a lot of variety in the stage design, which surprised me. The levels give you objectives to do, ranging from racing, to helping other characters traverse the level, to doing certain things within a time limit. All in all, this was a pleasant surprise, and I can see me playing it more. I think I'll give it a B. Okay, so here are the rankings so far. There are 3 games left, all of which I had never played before making this video. So, let's see what's next. This next game is a title that only got a physical PAL release, which makes a change. Yes, I know it came out in the States on the Super Nintendo with a few changes, but this ain't a SNES list. This is also the first game on the list to be made by Disney themselves, and I like to think of it as a follow-up of sorts to Quackshot. And where Quackshot is basically Donald does Indiana Jones, this is Donald does Magnum P.I. The thing is, despite this game looking great on paper, I must say that I didn't really like it that much. It just feels imprecise to play. It's hard to explain, but you'll know what I mean if you play it. The platforming feels a bit wonky and the shooting is awkward, which for a platforming shooter is kind of a problem. It has that same sluggish, inconsistent platforming that Fantasia has. I mean, it's nowhere near as bad as Fantasia, but for in-house Disney and this late in the system's life, it's disappointing to say the least. Not helping is the dull labyrinthine levels and bosses that take 1 billion years to kill. I'm sorry Donald, but your third and final Mega Drive game is your worst in my opinion. It's a C. Oh good, another platformer based on an OK movie that is basically Romeo and Juliet in Native America. Based off screenshots and short videos, I was expecting this to play like Aladdin and Jungle Book, but worse. So I started it up and, well, my expectations were way off. This actually plays a lot more like Prince of Persia or Flashback, which was a nice surprise as Flashback is one of my favourite games of all time. This is actually a puzzle platformer, where you can switch freely between Pocahontas and Miko, using their combined abilities to traverse the stages, unlocking abilities as you go. The more I played, the more impressed I was. The graphics are stunning with beautiful animation and interesting stages where you really do have to think about how to progress. A totally unexpected surprise that I look forward to playing more. I think I'll give it a B for now, but it's not that far off an A. And here we are, the final game, which is odd since it's based on one of the oldest Disney films. And I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. Pinocchio is okay. It kind of reminds me of Mickey Mania, visual styles quite similar I think. It also has quite the variety in its stages, although sadly the quality also varies, and since it was an extremely late release for the system, it's not exactly the cheapest game to buy today. All in all, it's okay, looks decent enough, but by this point the PlayStation and Saturn were out, so it was all but ignored. I think I'll give it a C. Okay, so there you have it. Every Disney game on the Mega Drive ranked. You can see the final rankings here. It's mad to think that these games spanned just about 6 years, and to give you an idea of that time frame, consider this. The first game, Castle of Illusion, came out the same month as the Super Famicom in Japan, and the last game, Pinocchio, came out 4 months after the Nintendo 64 in Japan. Considering that, you can't say that Sega never supported this system. I hope you enjoyed this video, as it took me almost as long to make it as defeating a boss in Maui Mallard. I'm off to see what other games I can beat faster than it takes to cook a roast dinner. This is Mr. O of the Good, the Bad and the Retro, signing off.